Hi, my name's Huma Farouk, and I will be conducting a series of questions to a panel of my fellow co-teachers at Chatham Academy. All the questions consist about classroom management and how each individual teacher responds and feels about the question at hand. How do you maintain classroom management in a Chicago public schools setting? I hope you enjoy. What is your philosophy of education?
My philosophy is that not every student has to be able to accomplish the skills at the same time. It's more of the Montessori way. Let them discover it, let them figure it out, and give them as much time as possible to get to where they need to go.
Wonderful. Can you please describe the teaching techniques or strategies that are most effective for you?
As far as strategies are concerned, the more that you let the students know what to expect, the better results you have. Kids like structure. They like to know what is going to happen on a daily basis, so then they can plan their life and they feel like they have control over the class.
Okay. Can you please describe your philosophy regarding discipline in the classroom?
You have to be stern. They have to think that you are the queen bee of the classroom, and it's your classroom. As far as how things go in the classroom, but then you also have to be flexible, so then the students know that you're listening to them as far as what's going on in the classroom. They like it when they get a chance to give feedback as far as the environment of the class.
Interesting. What is your classroom management style or plan?
Collaborative, very flexible, but I am driven by their data. So if I don't feel that the student has accomplished what they need to do, we just keep on going and do it until they've perfected it, or at least they've mastered the skills that they need to do.
Can you please describe what you would consider to be a model classroom?
A model classroom is when a student is engaged, and what I mean by engaged is not just pushing the paper and a pencil, but questioning, debating, arguing. That to me is a model classroom, because they are doing more critical thinking, and they're questioning also what I'm telling them. Mm. And so then I know that they're not just regurgitating the answers back to me.
Very interesting. When students say they want their teacher to be fair, what do you think that they mean by that?
The students mean that they don't want the teacher to be grading them or judging them on a whim, or being biased towards one person or the other. It has to be across the board. I've heard students say that, oh, this other teacher does this because it's that student. That's not right. We should just be the recorder of their skills, instead of trying to deliberately change things.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Andrew Hill, number 1, what is your philosophy of education?
My philosophy of education centers around the teaching of skills rather than the memorization of facts. As a science teacher, I've seen a lot of classes that are taught as, here, learn these facts, repeat them back to me. That's not how science works, and that's not how life works. So it's much more important to me that the students understand how to use information. And so my classes are very much about, okay, you have the information, what do you do with it?
Number 2, please describe the teaching techniques or strategies that are most effective for you.
All right. I like to have at least one hands-on activity a week when I can. Depending on the topic matter, sometimes science gets fairly abstract, and especially with a limited budget, it's difficult to simulate those things. But whenever possible, I will have either something in the classroom or a computer simulation that will create that experience. I also enjoy a great deal of discussion. I make sure that my classroom is a safe place to ask questions. It can be embarrassing for some students to realize that they're 20 years old and don't know how their bodies work yet. And so creating a culture wherein asking me a question and knowing that they were not going to be mocked or belittled is extremely important to me.
Number 3, please describe your philosophy regarding discipline in the classroom.
By and large, my philosophy regarding discipline has been to treat my students like people, and that has worked. I mean, that sounds crazy sometimes, but I've taught in enough places where I'll take the really hard, rough, tough kids, and I will treat them with respect and listen to them, and they will do everything I ask them to do because I've shown them that respect and no one else has. So establishing that respect early on is vital for classroom management for me.
What is your classroom management plan or style?
That thing I just said.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. Number 5, please describe what you would consider to be a model classroom.
Model with regard to what?
Your standard model classroom. Which could lead us into a question, what is considered a standard model classroom?
Yes, there's that. Well, I've spent a long time working at schools where I have no budget, and I'm beginning to see the value of having one. Like I said, I like to do hands-on activities when I can, but my extremely limited budget does not always allow me to do that. Similarly, the lack of technological access doesn't allow me to do as many research projects as I would like. Having students become familiar with how to find information and how to utilize that information is the crux of what we do today, and I can't do that. I can't bring it into my classroom because my students can't get the computers. They're just not available.
Okay. Last question, number 6. When students say they want their teacher to be fair, what do you think that they mean by that?
What they mean and what they actually need are not necessarily the same thing. Because what they need is actual fairness. But fairness is not necessarily getting what you want, and that is a hard lesson to learn growing up. But I think when they want someone who is fair, usually that means that they want someone who will do that thing that they want to have happen, which sometimes can be what's actually fair, and sometimes is not. And we sort of have to trust that our admittedly flawed and human teachers are able to differentiate which is which.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rebecca Katz. Number 1, what is your philosophy of education?
My philosophy of education is that it's not necessarily about what the students are learning or even what they walk away from school with, but it's about teaching them and helping them develop critical thinking skills. And so no matter what strange conclusions they come up with now, like while they're 16 and 17, if you can actually teach them to think critically about stuff, then as they mature in other ways and as they develop more knowledge through other things, if you can create critical thinkers, they're going to end up being successful.
Interesting. Number 2, please describe the teaching techniques or strategies that are most effective for you.
My most effective teaching techniques and strategies are things that are going to be really engaging for the students. Instruction and instructional design is what I find interesting. And so coming up with new ways to get all the kids into it and then doing that until they're not into it anymore and then coming up with a new way, that's my favorite thing about about teaching. And so things like having the students like get into groups and become experts on what their group is supposed to be an expert on, really kind of creates an ownership for the kids, so those sorts of strategies.
Number 3, please describe your philosophy regarding discipline in the classroom.
My philosophy with discipline in the classroom is that you're here to learn. It needs to be a learning environment. And if you're not being a part of the learning environment, then you need to not be there. That being said, I think that there are a lot of ways to get kids to be a part of the learning environment. And so really I think my philosophy, especially with our population of students, is that they all want to be there, and that's why they showed up, and they all actually really want to graduate, and they just forget it all the time because they're kids. And so my philosophy is just reminding them about how important it is, being consistent, showing them every day that you care, showing them that when you're being mean about the rules, it's because you care, and you're going to be just as mean about them tomorrow and the next day and the next day, so that they can see that there's really that kind of consistency, and they'll play into whatever the routine becomes.
What is your classroom management plan or style?
My classroom management style, I don't like to talk. I'm not someone who really likes to talk in front of people at all. I like the kids to be doing stuff for as much of the time as possible, partially because I think they learn the best that way, and partially because I really don't like talking to the whole group. And so I always manage my class by having the routine of they come in, there's something on the board to do, we go through it, we talk about it, and then I just jump them right into whatever we're doing, and I make sure I'm really clear with my instructions, because I think that when the kids know what's expected, they'll do what's expected of them. So just being super clear, and then going and sitting with groups of students and rotating around the room, rather than trying to get every student in the room doing the same thing at any given moment.
Please describe what you would consider to be a model classroom.
I think that there are a lot of different models of classroom, that would be successful. I think that it's very rare that you go to two successful teachers' classrooms and see the same thing, but I think you do see some things that overlap between all successful classrooms, and I think it's a general feeling of respect that the students have, a respect that they feel from the teacher, a respect that's developed from student to student because of the expectation, and I think that's the one common thread, right? You can go into a model classroom where the teacher is leading and everyone's following. You can go into a model classroom where it's really collaborative learning or project-based learning. But I think the one thing that really sets it apart is that environment of safety and respect.
When a student says they want their teacher to be fair, what do you think that they mean?
I think they don't always know what they mean. I think that a lot of students, a lot of teenagers in general, have the idea that equality and fairness are the same thing. And so I think when they say that, what they want is they want their teacher to be equal. But I don't think that's what they actually want, because then when you talk to them and you explain to them, hey, Brianna worked until 8 in the morning, so I know you don't think it's fair that I'm letting her sleep in the corner right now, but it's really just not equal, because if you had worked until 8 in the morning and I saw you trying to stay awake, and I know that you're actually needing to sleep is a lot more important than me trying to keep you awake for something that you can't learn while you need to be sleeping. The students pick up on that. They respect that. They understand that. So I think, they want clarity, right? they want it to be equal, but they don't really want that. So you have to be clear with why you're doing things, and they want the consistency, because if they see that you're always consistent and then you do something that doesn't make sense, they'll respect that you've done it for some sort of reason, or they'll at least to hear you out when you, even if your explanation is just, hey, you don't know what's going on with that kid. And if they know that you're otherwise really consistent, they'll consider that to be fair.
Thank you for tuning in with me, Huma Farouk. I hope you've gained an insight to some of the philosophies of our teachers here at Chatham Academy. I hope to talk to you guys all soon. Thank you.